if the telephone is not working. The issue becomes public notice.
All right.
The public is notified by, good evening, ladies and gentlemen who might be watching. We are live in the middle of technical issues. We are trying to get board members on phone and proceed because the system does not appear to be working.
No, it's my computer that's not working.
Okay. Is there another computer at Town Hall that you can use or not? No?
I'll figure it out.
Thank you for calling First Light's Conference Direct Service. We're glad you're here. Please enter your participant or moderator code followed by the Please say your name followed by the pound key.
Joanne.
Barbara, do you want to reset?
Hello.
Why don't you doing this?
Hi, can you all hold on? I'm having trouble with the computer.
What do you want me to do?
Just hold on.
Saying
Oh, okay.
Okay.
You want to do that?
Yeah. Daryl's putting us into recess if you're watching till we get this straightened out.
Is anyone else on the telephone line besides?
All right, we're gonna get going tonight. This is a Goffstown Planning Board meeting. Today is October 22nd. This is a meeting to address one item. The board had actually canceled this meeting at our last meeting, but something's come up, so I've called a meeting. I want to thank all board members for coming in. The meeting has been noticed. It has been also noticed for electronic access in accordance with the governor's emergency orders. And accordingly, we are operating both by video and audio through the telephone. In that regards, we had a little snafu, but if you're a member of the public, you should be able to call in. I need to read some things, but if you have called in and you're a member of the public, I would ask that you mute your phone just to prevent any feedback. The right to know checklist that I need to inform board members and the public about is that due to the COVID-19 outbreak and in accordance with Emergency Order 12 and Executive Order 2020-04, we are authorized to do this meeting electronically, and you can also attend here in Town Hall. We have provided public access to this meeting by telephone with additional access possible by video or other electronic means. And the telephone line that we're using for this, you can use, and I just tried it, so I know it works, is 603-766-5646. And the participant code that you need to enter after you dial that number is followed by the pound sign. Again, normally we would have you going through a computer and you'd be able to raise your hand. We can't do that
I
tonight.
have it now. It's
Oh,
just
Joanne is
sideways.
claiming she does, but just
Same
bear with
reason.
us, we have some technical difficulties dealing with you electronically tonight. If you do have a problem with telephone access, call 603-660-5000. And if we find out the public is unable to access this meeting, we will adjourn and reschedule for a later date. All votes tonight are taken by roll call due to the electronic access. And we start by taking attendance. I'm going to ask everybody here in the room to identify themselves, starting with David, please.
David Pierce, I'm an alternate member.
Tim.
Tim Redmond.
My name is Barbara Griffin.
Gayla Brock, alternate and recording secretary.
On the line, Phil.
I'm here, and I'm alone.
Phil Devanza. Jim Raymond.
This is Jim Raymond.
Thank you. Pete Georgianis.
Peter Georgiannis, Selectman's Rep.
Thank you. And is Kimberly on the line?
No.
All right. So we have 4 regular members, so both David and Gail will be voting tonight.
Is Sarah on the line?
Sarah, are you on the line? Is there any town staff on the line?
Sarah Wardy, Town Engineer.
Thank you, Sarah. You're on my list here. So, Joanne, we're here tonight. We said we had a meeting last October 8th where we had a correspondence and action item in regards to Paris Auto Body site on Mass Road in Penardville. We had a long discussion. There was a request which we denied. And we said at the end of that discussion that we could address this at another meeting. So what are we here to address tonight?
So the applicant, or I'm sorry, the owner of the property, Mr. Paris, dropped off a check in the full amount for the fencing work that will be done. That includes replacement fence and repairs. He also dropped off a copy of the contract, which you should all have a copy of, with Finnegan Fence for the work that they're to do. Sarah and I went there Monday and we did an inspection of the site, and we found that they were missing just a few signs for directional in and out, a no trespassing sign that was shown on the plan, and a handicap stencil. The handicap stencil has been painted, and they are going to be working on the other signs within the next few days. So my recommendation would be to accept the owner's request to move forward and allow Jorker to obtain a temporary CO.
All right, Joanne, can we back up a little bit, please? Because I think we need a little history, because you've sort of jumped right into this. We have an approved site plan, and the site plan had a fence installation that was supposed to be done as a condition of October 1st, correct?
October 1st was the deadline.
The deadline for the fence, and the fencing work was not done, correct?
Correct.
So a CO did not issue because the plan was not signed, because the conditions had not been met by the time frame, correct?
The condition of the fence had not been met, and a few of the other items were not complete.
Right, gravel had not been installed, the signage, the handicap parking, and a couple of other things. I think they were in the process of getting the containers off. I think there might have been one left, that has since been removed, correct?
Correct.
So we had a deadline on an approved site plan that was not met.
Correct.
And they came in and essentially requested that a temporary occupancy permit be issued in exchange for promises to get the work done under certain conditions, right? And that's what we talked about last meeting.
Correct.
And as part of those conditions, that was what you were just talking about this sort of a surety arrangement we didn't really want to get into, and we had sort of a promise as to a fencing deal, but didn't really know what was going on. I don't think the gravel had been done yet, and there were a number of other conditions. So the board members voted that we would not we would not approve the issuance of a temporary occupancy, right? Certificate. All right.
They needed additional information.
So since then, in regards to the work for the fencing contract, have they produced a signed contract with the fencing company in regards to the work being performed?
Yes, they produced a signed contract with Finnegan Fencing.
And when is the work supposed to be done according to the contract with Finnegan Fencing?
It's either the first or second week of November, depending on the weather.
So when is the applicant asking for a time period to get the fence done by?
They haven't asked for an actual deadline of the completion of the fencing. They've asked that Jorker be allowed to occupy the site November 1st at the latest. I'm recommending that the fencing be completed by November 30th.
All right. And if conditions of the issuance of the temporary certificate of occupancy aren't met, what is our remedy?
Oh, sorry.
Well, plus you've got the computer up in front of your face along with the mask, so it's,
This computer is screwy tonight. So I would recommend that a temporary CO be issued until November 30th, and if the fence is not completed by then temporary CO would be revoked.
all right. And the gravel has been done,
It's actually hard pack,
but
And
that
not-
condition has been met?
correct.
And the condition for the handicap spot has been met?
Yes, I
Markage.
went by there tonight and it was all set.
All right. But the signage that's shown on the plan is not up?
The signage for the entranceways is not there, and then there was a no trespassing sign that's not yet been installed.
All right. And they are authorized, they have delivered a check to the town for the amount of the fencing contract.
Correct.
But are we being required to pay the fencing contractor?
No, they delivered a check in the full amount of the contract, and we would hold that check until the fencing is not only completed, but inspected and approved by the town, and then the monies would be released to the owner of the property, not the owner of the business.
Okay. So I'm just trying to go through this so that the board members understand what the proposal is and what your recommendation is. Because there's a couple of moving parts to it, and we've sort of jumped right into it, and we don't really have anything in front of us. So your recommendation is that a temporary certificate of occupancy be issued, subject to the town holding the $6,400, pending completion of the fencing work to be completed by November 30th, to be paid by the applicant, directly by the applicant, and he's gonna reimburse us. That the signage on the property, as required by the plan, be installed by November 1st,
Prior to Jorker moving in.
because the temporary CO, I understand, is for November 1st. And
And if the fencing work is not completed by November 30th, then the temporary CO would be revoked.
okay, all right, I'm gonna open it up to board questions. Tim?
What about the privacy slats that were supposed to be installed in the chain link fence as a condition of approval?
So I don't want to speak for the applicant, but I believe they changed that back to go with the privacy slats versus the other material that they had mentioned.
I'm asking you, the requirement was to put privacy slats within the existing chain link fence.
Right,
Has
and-
that been completed?
My understanding is that the applicant or the owner, not sure which, has decided
The
to
answer is no.
go with the plan the way it is. But if that's
I'm-
not correct, please correct
Joanne,
me.
the answer to Tim's question is no, the
Has it been
privacy
done, or
slats
has
has
it
not been done.
The work has not been done
How
because.
about the screening
fence-
around the dumpster pad? Has that been done?
No, because the fencing work hasn't been done yet. That will all be taken care of with the fencing work. That's part of it.
I read the contract. There's no mention of screening a dumpster in this contract. There's no mention of doing anything with a chain link fence in this contract. So those are separate items.
The dumpster will be screened.
Okay,
as part
the
of-
Tim's point is the Finnegan fence if there's a member of the public that called in, we're sort of having technical difficulties. If you can just mute, that would be good. Tim's point is the Finnegan Fence Company deals with the stockade fence along the back, and it doesn't seem to address the privacy slats.
Correct. The approval on the plan shows that the dumpster is going to be
Stockade.
screened. At the last meeting, you talked about that, and it was a board consensus that you would allow chain
No, it
link.
wasn't a consensus. Let me make that very clear. I didn't even poll all board members on that issue because it got sidetracked, and my
What? I'm sorry.
I'm just wanna, this, all the information is not here cohesively, so it's very difficult. Tim?
So did the plan specify what type of screening was to be around the dumpster? What was written on the plan?
Stockade.
Stockade fence?
Right.
So why was there a discussion about opaque panels?
The opaque panels, the applicant was going to install opaque panels, or they wanted to install opaque panels on the fencing that goes in front of Jorker's
Okay.
site.
I thought they wanted to do
Instead
it
of-
around the dumpster as well for some reason.
Yes, let me finish. Instead of the slats, and they wanted to do chain link around the dumpster because it was more durable, and they were going to, hoping to use that other material versus the slats.
So my question
That
is,
hasn't
we're
been
talking about
resolved.
an amended plan then, because these are all changes to the signed plan, to the unsigned plan, to the approved plan.
Correct, we don't have a signed plan.
So if we're talking about changes to the plan, why we don't talk about changes to the plan in a conversation among members? We have to have it on the plan to show us in writing so we can approve it or deny it.
Because we were talking about whether that would be a material or a non-material change. And people didn't seem to have an issue, maybe there was no consensus, but people didn't seem to have an issue changing the stockade to the chain link around the dumpster. The question still remained is whether they could change the slats.
All right, Joanne, I want to stop this discussion, because none of that is in the letter of October 21st, and it was not a clear consensus. I remember distinctly that I did not finish polling the board on the issue because of some other sidetrack that came up, and I recall thinking it at the time that I hadn't gotten a full poll of the board. And we all know that what the board decides at one meeting is not binding on the board necessarily at a next meeting, especially if there hasn't been a vote, but we don't want to mislead applicants. The letter from the applicant that you provided us said, in the event we are unable to locate additional information to submit to the board, we will install, and I don't have anything else in front of me, so I'm assuming you didn't get anything today. My client will install the privacy slats as originally proposed in the chain link fence in front of the Jorker site and around the dumpster. Now, my question is, I don't really care what was originally proposed. What was on the plan approval?
The plan approval for the dumpster was stockade.
Okay,
so
and
it
what was
had
the plan,
no
what was the plan approval for, in front of Jorker?
slats.
Okay, so I would need to have a consensus of the board, if that is a request, that a change to fabric in front of the Jorker site is not a material change, and a change from stockade to chain link with fabric is not a material change around the dumpster.
Correct.
All right. All right. So, all right.
And I have another question, Joanne. All these correspondents have called this a amended site plan. Is that what we're doing? Is this an amended site plan?
No, the amended site plan was the plan that was
That approved.
conditionally approved in
Okay,
July.
so this is not an amended site plan tonight?
Right.
No.
Anybody else have questions or comments here in the room? I'm not seeing any, so I'm go to people online. Phil?
I'm just not quite clear on the amount of change on the section of fence in front of the Jorker property, because, as you mentioned before, I only have what's in front of us that I got for the meeting. So I don't know what impact the change of the fence or the amount of fence in front of the Jorka property is going to affect the visual appearance. I'm just not quite clear on that. I think the one around the dumpster, if this is talking about changing what's around the dumpster, I don't seem to think is too much of a material change. It's just not clear on how much fencing, what you mean by in front. Is that what's visible from Mast Road?
Yes.
Can I answer that?
Joanne?
There is no change to the fencing itself. It's the same fencing that's been there all along. They had offered to install the slats, and that note now appears on the plan. Or, when in the approved plan from July, it appears on that plan.
Jim?
Two things. On the materiality of the change in the fence, and then my short answer is I don't know. But if that was a hearing at which there was a lot of abutter comment, and if the applicant made a representation about what the fence is going to look like in order to satisfy the abutters' concerns, and now is changing it to what, in my mind, would be a less attractive fence, I'm hard-pressed to see why we wouldn't consider that material. Normally, it would not be, but in this case, given the comments and the history, I'm a little hesitant. My second question, though, is a little more global. Why are we here? What is different about this request than the one we dealt with last time, where they were offering to post some surety, although I had questions about that and still do, so that they could go forward? Now they have a contract, but they still haven't completed the conditions. And you know as well as I do that temporary COs don't work. Once somebody occupies the property, it's very difficult to revoke a temporary CO. And you have not just a landowner who is unhappy, but also a renter who's unhappy. And that's great for the lawyers who will make money in it. But I question whether that's a good policy for us, where our conditions of approval were clearly laid out. And given the history of this project, I think we're justified. So I need some convincing, I'll put it that way.
Pete?
I'm pretty good with it, to be honest with you. I understand the guy's got business and we're trying to work with business owners in town. I think he's made a definite effort. That place looks better than it has in the last 20 years. And I think we have to take that into consideration as we're moving along. I understand Jim's concern and Phil's concern, but I still think that the applicant definitely made some definite improvements and is making some commitments. And I disagree with Jim. If we give him a temporary CO and he doesn't follow up, then we have to take some action. But I think we have to be in favor of working with the customer or with the client than we do working against them.
Thank you. Thank you to board members for attending. I know we had canceled this. I was contacted by Joanne in regards to some contact from the applicant through their attorney. And it appeared to me that the surety issue and the fact that there was some possibility that there was an expectation that we would end up in the business of paying a fencing company was not something we were going to get involved in. And the applicant took care of that. So I asked staff to post the meeting to address this because, quite frankly, I think the would-be tenant has been doing a lot of the work that needs to be done at this site, and I'm not trying to punish anybody, but I do expect plans to be adhered to. So I want to thank the board for calling in and being here tonight. I wondered whether I would have a quorum. And so, Jim, I understand your sort of why are we here. That's why. I will tell you that my position is that given that this is a commercial site, abutting residential, Given that the applicant offered to do the slats on the chain link fence that is existing, and given the circumstances that we're here today, which include the fact the applicant didn't ask for some changes until after the deadline for the fence installation, I am not inclined to find that the fencing change is non-material, because fencing is material to this site, given its location. However, I am inclined to think that the applicant appears to have done as much as they can, knowing that the fencing company had indicated there had been some indication that fencing work was a few weeks out. I don't know what we're gonna do if this isn't up November 30th, quite frankly. I think Jim's right in that regards, and I have serious concerns about it. The contract with the fencing company provides that if it's more than 60 days from signing, it's sort of null and void, because all bets are off in regards to scheduling and pricing. That's the way the world of wood is now. But it was signed on 10/21, which hopefully keeps us within the 60 days for contract performance. So that's sort of my position on it, board members. So again, thank you for your indulgence. Gail, do you have a position on this, since you will be a voting member on this?
Now, my comments on the fence itself, I think it was a big issue with the presentation, with the application, with the abutters, and I think it is more of a material change. My concern is with the contract with the
Fence company?
fence company, because the very last page, page 5 of 5, says it authorizes, and this gets to Jim's concern that he had mentioned, it authorizes the town and Finnegan Fence Company to enter onto the property located at 578 Mass Road to complete the fences shown on the amended non-residential site plan. And that's not the kind of business we wanna get into. And I don't, I know that there's gotta be something there to cover us if we're going to hold that money for them to get it done, but I think it leaves it wide open for them to not do it. And I'm concerned because the contract includes additional fees for things that they might find other than what's covered by the contract. And the amount provided to us does not cover any of those additional fees, because they don't know what they would be at this point.
Okay. David, did I ask you? I'm sorry. Or do you have
My-
something else to say now, I think is what.
My concerns are, I haven't heard any discussion about the location of the new wooden fences, where they are relative to the boundary lines. Because I read in some document that an abutter would not allow trespassing on their land for fence repair or fence installation, so that, in my mind, needed to be clarified. I don't regard putting slats in or a canvas cover anchored to the fence as material.
And what about the stockade to, I guess, chain link with fabric?
Well, yeah, yes,
There are two pieces of fencing on the town that they're, am I correct? Are you still asking for that or not? Okay, that's what
Waiting for to speak, but we
Okay.
have a moment.
Yeah, no, thank you. Okay, because we're starting to get into the weeds and I wasn't
But
sure
I-
that you were even there.
I support Gail's statements about it be highly unusual for the town to engage in fencing on private property.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna open it up to the applicant, because I did look to them in regards to the fencing issue, because they had make a representation that they were going to try to get us stuff before the meeting if they were gonna ask for the change. So, welcome.
Thank you, and thank you again for hearing this evening, and I appreciate the other board members making the time to address this concern. What I can tell you is, and I'm hoping you can help me, we have the contract, they come out, they measured it, they looked at all the posts and they examined all the fence, so it wasn't done off the cuff. They did actually make a site visit. We plan to put a new stockade fence where there is a stockade fence now. That will be replaced. And that is one of the conditions that's on here. It says fences in disrepair shall be repaired or replaced. That stockade fence will be done. Number 19 says privacy slats shall be installed in the existing chain link fence in the sections that are not currently occupied by stockade in the area to be controlled by Jorker. That is exactly what we're going to do.
Okay.
We've had great difficulty trying to get a piece of the screening that the fence company recommended in lieu of the slats. I guess the slats have been known to crack because of the dryness in the sun. And the best we could get is a printout, and I know that's not satisfactory. I won't even present it to you. I did give you a color picture, but that's all we've been able to come by. So we are sticking with exactly what is listed on the plan. The one question that I'm not clear on is around the dumpster, it says it's to be screened, and we have no problem with the screening. We just don't know whether we can, what kind of screening we should use. Chain link, should we use stockade, or should we use slats? Should we use the fabric? This is up to the board, unless it's on the plan and I missed it. I didn't find any fence specified for that, so whatever you'd like to see, we'll have it put on.
Joanne, I don't actually have the plan in front of me or the minutes from this meeting. Do you know what the note is on that fencing?
You know, she's correct. That's exactly what it states. Dumpster to be relocated and screened in this location. Let's see if it has any. I think everyone was assuming it would be stockade like the remainder of the fencing that had not been completed. And then they had asked me about whether they could do chain link, and that's when the board discussed it at the last meeting.
Yes, I do remember reading that in the minutes.
The only reason I suggested the chain link was because the fencing company said that it was a better option for around the fence.
The
Yeah.
dumpster.
Yeah, around the dumpster, I'm sorry, around the dumpster. They said it was a better option to do the chain link.
Excuse me, can you both formally tell me your name?
Charles Paris.
Thank you.
I'm Pat Pansiaco. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chuck.
So it was suggested to me that the best option would be to do the chain link. It wasn't my idea that this was something that, so when he suggested that, he also said that they don't do the slats as often because there's liability. The slats tend to dry out and they tend to crack, and then there's liability issues. But I have no problem leaving stockade around the dumpster, whatever it takes, leaving stockade around that, doing the slats in front of Jorker, and putting up the signs that are necessary. I have no problem doing any of that, which is on the plan.
Okay. All right.
And Madam Chairman, if I could mention this too, I do recall that my client has represented all along that he didn't think that the fence company would arrive by October 1st since the very beginning. And I can tell you also, he's been harassing him because I've been harassing Chuck about getting more information on the fence for the board.
Probably
It's-
would have helped to come in before October 1st. Okay.
That true,
Board-
true.
Board members. Anybody on the line?
There is someone on the line. I don't recognize the number. 0842 are the last four digits.
All right, let me go to board members on the line. Do any board members on the line want to comment further?
This is Jim Barber. As I understand what the discussion that just occurred, and I'm looking through my old files for the plans, is the question is just the dumpster screening and not the fence that's blocking the view from
Right.
the neighbor?
Yes, the applicant is nodding their head.
The fence, the chain link fence blocks the view from the street, Jim. The stockade fence blocks the view from the sidelines and the neighbors.
Okay. I guess I just trying to use some memory. That does strike me as less material than what I originally thought we were discussing.
Yeah, if you drive by the site on Mast Road or up the side street by the entrance area to where the tenant would be, you would see the chain link fence. The dumpster was going to be relocated, and I'm assuming that that is going to be behind the building, hopefully not in the alley between the two buildings where the
Right here.
tractor trailers were.
Yes.
Where is it gonna go?
It-
Behind.
It's gonna be behind the existing
Behind
automobile.
the existing building, not in where the tractor, the trailers were parked.
Yes,
So that will be blocked from Mast Road by the street. And arguably, you could see it from each side street when you go by. And the abutter view of it would probably be pretty blocked, actually, between the stockade fence and the trees along that line. But there is a little elevation there, but that's the site layout. I'm doing it from memory, from the plan and from knowing the site. So I don't have as much of an issue with a chain link fence with the fabric screening for the dumpster. The Jorker fence was the one I was more hung up on. David?
As Joanne just read to us, the dumpster shielding, the words on the plan didn't state anything about the material being used.
Right.
So it could be anchor fencing with slats, it could be anchor fencing with canvas, it could be a stockade fence. That's up to the client, the applicant to construct. We just require something.
okay,
Anybody else on the
That's my
line?
interpretation.
thank you.
Peter, Phil?
No, what was the recommendation from the fence company? Was it the fabric?
They,
The applicant is saying yes.
yes.
Okay.
But
I have to admit, I was by a dumpster in a parking lot yesterday that I walked up to because of what, I wanted to see what it was. And it actually was privacy slots. It looked pretty good, but
They do.
whatever. I actually thought it was fabric from a distance, but it was black privacy slats.
there is a condition too, Madam Chairman, on the list of conditions on the notice of decision that says if the slats were to become in
the
disrepair or
maintenance
crack,
issue.
we have to maintain that.
All right, so I want to address, if anybody thinks Gail's issue in regards to this contract with the assignment, I sort of see it as not something we will do, nor do we have to do by this assignment. So I'm not concerned about it, but maybe others are. My recollection is also this was on this before it got the signature of the fence company, actually.
We actually redid all the signatures for you.
No, I know that you did, but I think the assignment was on the original one you gave us with his
Question.
signature. David?
What's the status of your payments to the fencing company?
David, I don't know that that's,
Well, it goes to the point of, have they, if they've actually been paid to start the work? Or has that not been accomplished? But okay, it's not appropriate.
I mean, it's up to the applicant whether he wants to answer that, but I'm not sure that there's even, I'm reading the contract. I don't even see anything in the contract for a prepayment. I think this looks like we show up and you pay because we do the work.
Usually they'll look for 50%
Right.
once they deliver the material to the job site, and then they get paid the balance once the work is complete.
Tim?
So, in the worst-case scenario that the fence is not done by the end of the month, and the site plan, the certificate of occupancy is revoked, What's Mr. Jorker gonna do? Pack up his trucks and leave the site? No, because he's gonna have a contract for towing. He'll probably have vehicles in the yard in the short term, because his contract is to tow vehicles. So, we were being put in a very, very difficult position to make a decision because we don't know anything about the fence company, and if they were down there working right now, I'd feel much better, but they aren't even there yet working. So, taking the certificate of occupancy away may end up in a court situation, which means months could lapse before anything is ever even happens down there. So the whole issue of saying that it's gonna be done by the 30th, or you can revoke the certificate of occupancy is a moot point because people are gonna stay, they're not gonna move out. And this whole conversation about the fence has been going on forever. And at the neighbors' request, that was one of their biggest things, was the fence be done prior to being allowed to use the property. On the 23rd, you were issued your permission to get your plan going, you got your approval. And since the 23rd, you had the option to either repair the fence or replace it. Had you repaired the fence in the short term, we wouldn't even be here tonight. I don't know why the decision came in at our last meeting that, well, we've finally decided to replace the fence now that it's at the deadline. I'm just miffed that the neighbors, once again, are going to be pushed back, and I don't like doing that to them. They have been told that their concerns were less important, seemingly, than getting your approval done. And we approved your project with, as stated on the meeting by Attorney Panciaco, said her letter addressed everything and the owner's making good faith efforts to move forward. That was one meeting. And the prior meeting, Colin, your son, said the fence will be repaired by professionals, none of which has been done at this point. So you've had months to get this done, and now we're down to a 30-day window with a deadline to take the CO away, and I'm very skeptical that it's even gonna happen myself. And I don't like agreeing to these terms, especially since we said at our last meeting we were not going to accept a surety, and then in the course of 2 weeks, a surety's been given to staff, and staff has accepted it, which is in direct defiance of the board's decision not.
Tim, staff was delivered a check, they did not return it, staff had no say over it, they took it, I don't even know if it's been cashed yet.
No.
It was accepted, and it's in
And
the
I
safe.
stated in the minutes that if the applicant were to come forward with an action item at the next meeting, we could extend the deadline of October 1st. Well, the next meeting was supposed to be in November.
Can I just mention?
The
that?
next meeting, we had already canceled it, we had canceled the meeting.
No, not until after that, if you continue with the minutes.
So the next meeting was our next scheduled meeting.
Was supposed to be tonight, and then afterwards, the board decided to cancel tonight.
It was my decision to schedule this meeting.
I don't
It was not staff,
complain
so-
about that, I'm just saying that I
I
take
agree
credit
with
for
you.
what
I
I
have
said. I take credit that I said if they came back with a good faith effort at a next meeting, we could reconsider it. Well, the meeting had been canceled.
But not at that point.
All right. Well, now we're splitting hairs again, like we voted not to take a 50% deposit because they gave us a 100% deposit. That's not,
Tim,
sorry. I'm done.
thank you. Is there anybody on the line that wants to speak?
There is someone here, but I don't know who it is.
Well, I'm talking about planning board members, because I really am trying to get through this. This is a discussion, it wasn't noticed, we might have an abutter on listening.
So you have 3 planning board members on the line.
Right,
No one is
okay,
looking to speak.
all right. So, board members, I've sort of said my piece, the applicant is not looking to change what's going to SLAT. The issue is really whether or not you are inclined to go forward with what Joanne has said in regards to a temporary CO, fencing completed by November 30th, signage done by November 1st before the temporary CO, And in regards to, apparently, the part of the plan where we did not specify what kind of screening that the applicant, maybe we want to specify that the applicant is asked to speak. Pat?
Thank you. If I could, Madam Chairman, I'd like to address some of the concerns raised by Member Redmond. I think until Finnegan Fence, and it was a Herculean effort to get anybody out there to do on-site estimates, to really evaluate how much of the fence needed to be repaired, because my client thought it needed to be repaired initially, if you recall. And after Finnegan looked at it, as well as a couple of other fencing contractors, he did get 3 estimates, they determined that it was better to replace it. And that was why it was a little unclear up front. Originally, as I said, we thought it would be a repair. It became a replacement at that point in time, after having it assessed by the professionals. And he's willing to do that. It's a substantial investment. He isn't looking to put a Band-Aid up there. If he was in there for that reason, there's no point in repairing a fence that you're gonna remove and replace with a brand-new fence. As it stands now, and I've heard this 3 or 4 times from him, this is scheduled for the 2nd week of November. So we do have it on the calendar. It is ready for them to come. The weather's been very favorable, and we're lucky about that, that none of these guys are getting pushed back. But long story short, we cannot control subcontractors. All we can do is our best, and you kind of run a fine line whether you nag them too much or you don't nag them enough. We've been told several times that they'll be here the 2nd week of November. And I do understand, Member Redmond, you are raising a good point. It is a risk. And I recognize that. We wouldn't even be here tonight if we weren't trying to make it better for Jorker. Making Jorker wait is not a disservice to my client as much as it is for them. And they've actually been very patient, they've been very helpful, and they even offered to come over and help with a lot of the work, and I think that they've done that. So I do think overall we've got a good faith effort on the part of all the parties involved. And yes, it is a little risky that it may go to the 3rd week in November. What if something else happens and it's delayed even further? I can't control that. All we can do is our best, and I'm not sure there's much else we can do. And I'm not sure how much public gain there is by holding this tenant back any further when his site, his area, is all ready to occupy. So for that reason, I mean, I don't want to have you think, though, that I don't hear that there is a risk.
I would be pleased to see it done.
Me too.
That's my goal.
Yes.
It is my goal.
I think I think he's come a long way. It does look pretty nice. And as to the signage, the directional signage, I think he's already ordered the signs. I think he's spoken with you at the site, Joanne. He also called Sarah today and has a clear understanding of exactly now what needs to be installed where. Those should be done within the next couple days.
Sarah, are you still on the line? Is that your understanding, that they've got a clear understanding, you've been out there and it should be done shortly and you'll be able to check it?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, board members, is there any other discussion on this?
Barbara, I have 2 things if I can.
Bill?
I just checked the weather through November on AccuWeather from Manchester, and actually the weather looks fairly decent through. There's no days in there that are below freezing. It just started, no, I'm
Well,
just
that's
saying,
how
it
you
just
see it.
started
You know,
going
when you
below
need the tension cut,
at night,
we have
right
to-
around frost, 31 degrees.
Looking up the
But
weather.
that's usually a close comparison, so November should be a fairly decent month.
Anybody have the
only-
Farmer's Almanac?
No, AccuWeather.
Oh,
I
okay.
use that and it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Thank you,
Um,
Phil.
Now,
What's
the
the
only
second thing?
thing that I just wanted to make a point of, and I don't know if it's something that's of any importance, but if you look at the top of page 2 of 5, where it has notes, the bottom, the last note, it says panels overall condition are average, remaining life expectancy 5 to 10 years. Several panels throughout the fence have experienced faster rates of aging and may need to be replaced in the next 1 to 3 years. I'm only pointing that out, that there may be sections that need to be replaced sooner rather than later on it. And I just hope that it doesn't become an issue down the road, that's all.
I think, I'm hoping the applicant is aware that this fence can be seen. All right, thank you, Phil, for those points. Anybody else? Is anybody inclined to make a motion?
Barbara, for discussion purposes, this is Jim. I'll make a motion that, one, we find that the proposed type of fence around the dumpster is not a material change, since the plan did not specify what that would be anyway. And second, that we grant a conditional CO with deadlines of continuance on condition that the applicant show ability to, well, never mind, we can't do that, but that we obtain a consent from the tenant, Joker, that its tenancy is subject to the conditions of the temporary CO, and that it will vacate the property if the CO is revoked.
I'll second that.
And third, that our attorney's fees, if we have to enforce the revocation, will be paid by the applicant.
Pete, do you second that with the third condition?
Yes, I do.
All right, if I can, I also understand that this is subject to the terms, that the check is gonna be held and not returned to the applicant until after the fence installation, as set forth in the letter of 10/21, that the signage will be installed by November 1st and the fencing by November 30th, and we've all had a discussion as to what that means.
Barbara, this is Jim again. Yes, I would like our motion to have a addition to it that the town is under no obligation to complete the contract that the fence, notwithstanding the attempted assignment of the contract, but rather the sole obligation for performance of the conditions rests with the applicant.
Okay.
I don't want the applicant to say, well, you could have done this. No, we're not going onto private property for a private benefit.
Yeah, no, I understand, yeah, I agree. Gail, did you get that? And Peter, your second stands?
Yes, it does.
Okay, is there any further discussion on the motion?
I will note, this is Jim, I'm not happy with doing this, but if this is a way to get a material improvement to the property, that's Peter's theme, I think, I'm willing to hold my nose.
All right. I'm gonna call for a vote now. I'm gonna call for people in the room first and then online. David,
Yes.
Tim,
No.
Gail,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
chair votes no. So the motion passes.
Good. I can go home now.
Is there any other business tonight, Joanne?
No, there's no other business.
And so the applicant is
Motion to,
aware, I voted against the motion. I have concerns about the Jorker towing agreement. That's the piece that I have a problem with, but I suspect you'll be able to work that out with Joanne. David?
Madam Chair, what are our plans for addressing changes to the master plan?
Joanne?
So we have a draft master plan that the board members were sent,
That David's holding.
David's holding. And we are going to be taking a look at making some corrections or additions with Southern New Hampshire Planning, myself and Barbara. And hopefully we will get to do that before our workshop meeting on the 5th, because we'd like to mail those suggestions out to you prior to the 5th.
David, if you've got suggestions before that, yes.
That would be helpful.
'Cause
Boy,
it's-
has Dave got suggestions. Good man, he wrote them up for you.
Dave knew where this was going. So, yeah, the department's heads have it.
I have not heard back yet from
Yeah, no, I'm
with
not.
any
Yeah,
comments.
I don't know that we're gonna get a lot of comments, but to the extent people have gone through it,
Previously.
I've sat down with it, with staff and a couple of other things, so we're getting there.
I only mentioned the rail trail once.
No, you did it twice.
And I do have the software, online software.
Yeah, you're getting
work.
into the weeds, the board doesn't
No,
need to know
just to
that.
tell you, I got it working, so.
Okay. All right, and you got the phones working tonight, you're a genius.
I am.
All right.
They're upside
Phil,
down.
did I hear you make a motion?
Peter did.
Oh,
You did.
Peter.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, was Phil, okay.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
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 Everybody voted yes, I don't think you,
Roll
huh?
Roll call.
I don't think you have to do a roll call in adjournment. I was gonna try and get away with it. I don't think you need to, but I'll go ahead. David,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Gail,
Yes.
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Peter.
yeah.
The chair votes yes, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for coming in and for
Thank you.
calling in.
Good night.
Good night.